Okay, so the first thing you need to do is download an image file from the retropie.org.uk website. You can see here the first installation downloads. Now what an image file is, it's really just a file that you can put on an SD card, the small little cards that go into the Raspberry Pis. Now you can't just drag and drop these files onto the SD card. You have to use a special image writer. And so you can see here, you can either download this one on the left, you've got Raspberry Pi 0 and 1. If you've got a Raspberry Pi 2 or 3, you'll download this image file on this right-hand side. Once it's downloaded, you need to download this thing called Etcher, the software called Etcher. And this is the software you download to take your image file, take your SD card, and then this flash writes it to the SD card. So I'm not going to walk you through it. It's quite basic. So you would literally put your small SD card into a larger adapter that you could plug into a laptop, or if you have a device that you can plug the small SD card into and then plug it into a laptop via USB. And then for me, it asked me to format my SD card first, and so that was okay. In all honesty, mine showed up as 4 different drives. There was the original Raspberry Pi drive and then 2 other drives that it asked me to format. So you format the drive, and then okay, so this is your Retropie screen that comes up once you've determined which buttons you're going to be using on your keyboard or controller. You can see in the bottom of the screen that it says Launch Screensaver is your select button. Next one along menu, you push your start button. So for me, my start button is my space bar. So as soon as I hit on that, you can see it brings up this main menu option. At the moment, nothing that important that we're going to be using here. And so to get out of here, you can see at the bottom of the screen, bottom left-hand corner, it says to close it, push your start button again. So I push my keyboard button. So the other important button is your select button. It says button A. So I've pushed whichever button I've chosen for button A, and this brings up this larger Retropie menu. And so now let's give a bit of a background about ROMS. So this Retropie is really the operating system. So it's an example of another operating system is Windows or Mac, which is OS. So this is really just the background stuff. You have to physically go download games off of the internet, and those are called ROMs, R-O-M-S. And so kind of my first impression, you can see I'm very naughty. I don't always read the instruction manual. I'm quite stubborn. I thought, okay, we're going to set up the Wi-Fi. Super easy. We just download it off the internet. No. So the reason you set up your Wi-Fi is so that you can connect to another computer on the same network that's connected to the same Wi-Fi, and you're going to then download the ROMs to that other computer, and then through the Wi-Fi transfer it to this computer. And you do that by going down here to Wi-Fi. And so I just showed this to you because I really found a lot of the instruction manuals, especially on the Retropie website, just talk about going to the Wi-Fi menu. How the heck do you get here? So just to remind you, I'm going to push the B button. You can see at the bottom of the screen it says B for back. I push B, and so I go back here. So you're going to be this first menu. So to go into Wi-Fi, you push whichever button is your A button. At the bottom of the screen it should say A is select. I push it and I go down here to Wi-Fi. So that's how you get to it. And to go into it again, I don't push enter. I push the A button to launch it. And then you can see it gets to a very old school screen. So you can see first you actually have to define your country. And so you can see it says I need to launch Raspberry Pi config for that. So I'm going to go the left right button takes you yes and no. I'm going to click yes. Now you can click enter. A and B doesn't work on this page. You have to push the enter button. And you can see it brings us to this configuration menu. We want to change our country. So that's why we're going to go down to number 4 here and set up our region. Click enter. And then we're going to do the number 4 here, I4, change Wi-Fi country. So click enter, and we're going to scroll all the way. I'm in South Africa. So so interestingly enough, this is not by alphabetical order for the country name. It's by alphabetical order for this code standing for a country. And you can see ZA stands for South Africa. So even though it's a S, it's the right-hand country names are not in alphabetical order. So I'm on it and I click OK. Wi-Fi country set to ZA. Click OK. And so even though I'm in this menu and I click the up and down arrows go up and down, if I click the left and right buttons, it automatically takes me to select, and I'm going to go right, go to finish. So I'll go back to finish, and then on this Wi-Fi page I go connect to Wi-Fi, click OK, and you can see it's trying to look for the network. So I think my network is obviously not showing up. Yours should show up there, and you'd click OK and it would connect to it. So I'm actually not going to do this way, and it's because my Wi-Fi is giving problems. I'm going to use USB to transfer my ROMs, but this was just to show you how to get to the Wi-Fi menu. If you do that, it's often the first thing that's described in ways to get your ROMs across. So I'm going to click the right button and click on cancel, and to get out of here I'm going to click the right button, go exit. Okay, so back at this menu here, another menu we use quite a bit is this Retropie setup, pushing A to go into it. And here it tells you what version of Retropie you run. You can see I'm running version 4.4. If you've just downloaded off the internet and installed, it should be the latest version. I've heard that if you've got version 4.2 or earlier, it's better to update it. I'm going to go here to configuration tools. So see, click enter, and I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom here to the third one from the bottom, USB ROMS service. So that's what we're going to be using to transfer our ROMs. So we're going to click OK, and you can see here's enable ROMS service. We click OK, and that's all good. And now you can right click, go cancel, and let's go back. Let's go back again. Yeah, and that's the main thing we're going to use here. So let's go right click exit. Okay, and so once that is set up, you can see if I click my B button to take me back, my initial screen that when Retropie comes on, let me tap so it shows it, it says Retropie configuration. And so underneath it should say what games you have, but there are no games when you start up. I think I found that quite confusing from the Retropie first installation site, because their picture shows like 13 games. And the main thing to note is there will not be any games on your Retropie. They are just providing this background, this operating system. You have to go and get ROMs. To do that, we're going to go back to our computer. And all of this I learned from a YouTube video, which I will show you on the PC. And you can either follow my video or follow their video. One thing to just... Okay, and this is the YouTube video I was talking about, this Retropie Run ROMs games from USB stick. I've watched one other one that made no sense to me. This one was very clear. It's by ETA Prime, so you're welcome to watch their video instead of mine. They follow the same steps. So what they have done first is they, on your Retropie operating system, they enabled the USB ROMS service. Now what they're going to, the next step is to format the USB that we are going to be using for our ROMs. Okay, so once you've plugged in your USB, you're going to go down to it here, you're going to right click on it, and you're going to go here to format, and you're going to make sure that in this file system menu, you're going to go to FAT32, and you're going to click start, and then it'll say eventually file drive formatted. You click OK and you click close. I'm not going to reformat mine, and then your flash drive will come up blank, and you're going to right click new and click on folder, and you're going to create this Retropie / mount folder, and it's going to be empty. And then you're going to eject your USB, you're going to plug it into your Raspberry Pi. And so switch on your Raspberry Pi. Once it's on, the Retropie operating system has loaded up, plug in your USB into the Raspberry Pi, and it's going to flash for a while. And what's happening is all the information on your Raspberry Pi is being transferred into this Retropie folder. So once it stops flashing, you can unplug it and bring it back into your computer here. And this is what it's going to look like. So you've taken an empty folder, you've plugged it into your Raspberry Pi, it's flashed a lot, you brought it back, and now you can see it's loaded all the files on your Raspberry Pi. And it loads in all these ROM folders, but if you go into them, you can see they're empty because there are no files in it. And now you're going to go to the internet and you're going to download the ROMs that you want. So okay, so I think a big thing to keep in mind is that some ROMs are not legal and they break copyright law. So there are some web pages that show free and legal ROMs for Retropie. This is howtrue.com, and you can scroll down here. They give legal ROMs for these different consoles. And you can see I clicked on let's show, for example, the first one here, and it gives you a list of all the ROMs that they've got, and once you click on it again, you then click on download. Okay, you can see it comes up here. Here's some of the games. Let's just, for example, click on Spectre. You would click here on download ROM. So that's how you can get some free ROMs. A very important thing to keep track of is what console do they come from. So you can see that's the Spectre file came here from the arcade console. And the reason why it's important is once you've downloaded it, you need to put it in the right folder. And so I've actually already downloaded from NES here. So NES is Nintendo. I went along and I've downloaded Tetris game. Tetramino, and I've saved it on my computer. Let's see where I've saved it. Just keeps them all in the same place so that you don't lose track of them. I've saved them under ROMs, and I've put it in the folder of the console. So it was NES, and then you can see it was a zip file, and I've unzipped it here. And you can see tons of files inside. So now I'm going to take this folder, copy it, copy, and I'm going to go down here to my flash drive. I'm going to go inside Retropie Mount, I'm going to go inside ROMs, and I'm going to look for NES, and you can see it's down there. I didn't create this. This came across from my Raspberry Pi. It's the file structure inside the Retropie operating system. Double click on NES and I paste it here. So you can see I've pasted it already. And so now what's going to happen is once I unplug this USB and plug it back into my Raspberry Pi, I'm going to restart my Raspberry Pi, and then the game will show up on the screen. Okay, so I've put the ROMs across onto the USB. I've now plugged it into my Raspberry Pi. I now need to restart Retropie, and how I do that is I choose the menu option. So it says Start button for menu, and that's my space bar. It depends what you configure it to be. I'm going to go down to the bottom here. I click my A button to go into it. I'm going to click on the first one, Restart Emulation Station, Restart Yes. And you can see it's restarting. My flash drive is flashing, and you can see the screen has changed. It now says one game available. If I push my right and left button, it shows it's a Nintendo game that I've installed. Ironically, I've actually put through 4 games on my flash drive, but only one of them is picking up. So it seems to be quite finicky as to what it does and doesn't pick up ROM-wise. These were all free ROMs. Maybe that's what the problem is. But you can see here Nintendo. I'm going to go into it. So I push my A button. It lists the only game I've put in there, and I click A, and then it starts it up. So have fun playing around and finding some ROMs that you like.